We're in Honolulu. Look at this view. My mother's voice came through my phone as the video call connected, showing her standing on a balcony overlooking turquoise waters. Why didn't you come to the airport yesterday, sweetie? The saccharine tone in Diane Mitchell's voice made my stomach twist into knots. I stood frozen in the middle of Dallas International Airport, my carefully packed suitcase beside me, gripping my phone so hard my knuckles turned white. A notification banner slid across the top of my screen, a new Instagram post from my sister Rebecca, already tagged at the Hawaiian resort with our parents. The truth hit me like a physical blow. They had deliberately lied about our flight date. My name is Olivia Mitchell, 32 years old, and I never thought my own parents would stoop this low. Look who's here with us, my mother continued, turning the camera to show my father lounging on a deck chair, cocktail in hand. Walter Mitchell, 60, waved at the camera with a broad smile, the same man who just 3 weeks ago had barely been able to move his fingers due to his severe arthritis. The arthritis I'd paid $35,000 to treat. I'd been looking forward to this family vacation for months, desperately needing a break after an exhausting quarter at my marketing firm. I'd just finished leading a major campaign launch, running on coffee and determination for weeks. This trip was supposed to be my reward, a chance to relax and reconnect with my family. What do you mean, yesterday? I managed to say, my voice trembling as I watched a happy family with matching luggage walk past me. You told me the flight was today at 2 p.m. I have the WhatsApp messages to prove it. I quickly minimized the video call to pull up our chat history, my hands shaking. There it was, plain as day, my mother clearly stating May 15th for our departure. The bustling airport suddenly felt suffocating. Travelers rushed past me, their excited chatter and laughter only highlighting my growing devastation. A child squealed with joy nearby, clutching a stuffed dolphin with Hawaii embroidered on its belly. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of other people's happiness. Oh, sweetie, there must have been some confusion, my mother replied, but the slight hesitation in her voice betrayed her. I watched her share a quick glance with my father off camera. Your sister made it just fine. We're all settled in at the resort now. Of course, Rebecca made it. At 34, my sister was still their priority, their golden child. The aspiring actress who'd been auditioning 4 years while living at home. I caught a glimpse of her in the background of the video, sunglasses perched on her head, taking a selfie with the ocean behind her. I should have known something was off when they insisted on handling all the flight arrangements themselves. Don't worry about anything, my father had said. Just focus on your big marketing presentation. I have airline miles to use, and will take care of everything. The same parents who relied on me to help pay their bills somehow couldn't trust me to book my own ticket. This wasn't confusion, Mom, I said, my voice growing stronger as anger replaced shock. The couple standing next to me at the check-in counter glanced over, but I was beyond caring. You deliberately gave me the wrong date. You never wanted me on this trip, did you? The silence on the other end was deafening. In the background, I heard the clink of ice in a glass. Now, Olivia, don't be dramatic, my mother finally said, her tone shifting from sweet to dismissive in an instant. These things happen. My phone pinged with a notification. A text from my friend Megan, how's the family vacation going? Send beach pics. The irony stung like salt in a wound. I ended the call, my hand trembling so badly I nearly dropped my phone. Around me, families embraced as they prepared for their own vacations, parents helping children with their backpacks, couples holding hands as they rolled their luggage toward security. And there I stood alone, betrayed by the people who should have loved me most. The irony wasn't lost on me. Just last week, I'd transferred $3,000 to my parents' account specifically for this trip. For the past 2 years, I'd been sending them money every month, helping them maintain their lifestyle after my dad's early retirement from his banking job. They relied on my financial support for everything from his medical bills to groceries, and still, they chose to exclude me from our family vacation. Looking at my useless suitcase with its carefully packed summer dresses and new swimsuit items I'd splurged on despite my usually frugal habits, I felt tears welling up. But more than sadness, a burning anger rose inside me, unfamiliar in its intensity. I tapped on Rebecca's Instagram post, a family selfie captioned "Family Vacation Begins." #blessed, #ohana, #paradise. My parents and sister, all smiles, no mention of my absence. This wasn't just about a missed vacation, it was about years of manipulation and favoritism. Years of emptying my savings account while they emptied my emotional reserves. And standing there in the airport, surrounded by strangers heading to their destinations, I made a decision that would change everything. At the airport, continued, 2 months ago, when they first mentioned planning a family trip to Hawaii, I'd felt a flutter of genuine excitement. Finally, a chance to spend quality time together away from the stress of work and financial discussions. My parents had insisted on handling all the arrangements. "Don't worry about anything," my father had said during our Sunday video call, his face unusually animated. "I still have all those airline miles from my banking days. We'll take care of everything. You just focus on that big marketing campaign you're launching. We want this to be special," my mother had added, her voice warm with what I'd thought was affection. A proper Mitchell family vacation. Like a fool, I'd believed them. I even transferred an extra $3,000 to their account specifically to help cover the resort expenses, on top of my regular monthly support. "It's the least I can do," I told them, imagining lazy days on the beach and family dinners watching the sunset. I'd pictured us reconnecting, sharing stories, maybe even having heart-to-heart conversations that didn't revolve around their financial needs. I thought maybe this trip would be different. That they would finally see me as more than just their financial safety net. That we could be a real family. Instead, here I was, standing in an empty check-in line at Dallas International Airport with a packed suitcase and a broken heart. The Hawaiian Airlines desk attendant had already confirmed what I knew deep down. There was no reservation in my name for today. There never had been. My phone buzzed again. Another notification. Rebecca had just posted a new Instagram story, a boomerang of her and our parents toasting with colorful cocktails garnished with tiny paper umbrellas. The resort's infinity pool stretched behind them, melting into the blue Hawaiian ocean. The caption read, "Family Vacation Begins. Day 1 in Paradise. Missing you, sis. Wish you could have made it." #ohana, #blessed. The #ohana felt like a deliberate slap in the face. Family means nobody gets left behind, except Olivia, apparently. The rage that filled me in that moment was like nothing I'd ever experienced. Not a hot flash of anger, but something cold and clarifying. Standing there in the airport, staring at Rebecca's perfectly filtered photo, something inside me finally snapped. The cord of obligation that had bound me to my family for years, that had drained my bank account and my spirit, severed completely. I sat down on a nearby bench and started scrolling through past WhatsApp messages from my parents. With my emotions cleared, the pattern became crystal clear. Every conversation about the trip had been carefully orchestrated to ensure I'd miss it. The flight's at 2 p.m. on the 15th, my mother had texted last week. I found the message and took a screenshot. But then I switched to Instagram and looked at Rebecca's story again. There, visible in the corner of a photo from yesterday, was their boarding pass, May 14th, clear as day. They hadn't made a mistake. They'd planned this deception down to the last detail, making sure to have me send money before executing their scheme. My phone rang again, the special ringtone I'd assigned to my father. I almost let it go to voicemail, but then decided I wanted to hear what he had to say. "Olivia," he started, his voice stern with that banker's authority he'd never lost in retirement. It was the voice he used when I was a child being scolded for interrupting one of Rebecca's performances. Your mother is very upset by your attitude. We made an honest mistake with the dates, and you're turning this into a drama. You're a grown woman with an MBA, you should understand these things happen in travel. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. An honest mistake? Then why did Rebecca know the correct date? Why did you insist on booking everything yourselves? And why do I have written confirmation from you that the flight was today? Now listen here, he began, his voice taking on that dangerous edge that used to frighten me as a child. No, Dad, you listen, I cut him off. The old Olivia would never have dared interrupt him. I just checked my bank statements. Last week, I sent you $3,000 specifically for this trip. That's on top of the $35,000 I sent for your arthritis treatments 3 weeks ago, the condition that seems to have miraculously improved enough for you to play golf, according to Rebecca's latest post. I pulled up my banking app as I spoke, looking at the transaction history. Was that money a mistake too? Or did you just take it knowing you'd leave me behind? The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. I could hear him breathing, calculating his next move like he was considering a risky investment. Olivia, he finally said, his voice softer now, trying a different approach. The pivot from intimidation to manipulation was so familiar it was almost comforting in its predictability. You know we're on a fixed income since my retirement. We needed that money for the trip. You're doing so well with your marketing career. You understand about making sacrifices for family, don't you? That's what family does. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. A couple seated nearby glanced at me with concern, but I was beyond caring about appearances. Sacrifices for family? My voice cracked. I've been making sacrifices for years. I've given up my savings, my dreams of buying my own home, my chance at a relationship because I work constantly to support all of you. I live in a tiny apartment while you keep your house. I drive a 10-year-old car while you and Mom just bought a new SUV with my money. And this is how you repay me? Don't be selfish, he snapped, abandoning the soft approach as quickly as he'd adopted it. Your sister needed this vacation. She's been under so much stress with her acting career. You know how important this is to her. And her acting career? I interrupted, my voice rising enough that the concerned couple gathered their bags and moved away. You mean the hobby you've been funding with my money while she lives rent-free in your house? The auditions that supposedly happen in California while she's actually working part-time at a coffee shop? The headshots and acting classes that somehow cost thousands while I work 60-hour weeks to support all of you? That's enough, he shouted, his control finally breaking. I won't stand for this disrespect. You've changed, Olivia. Money has made you cruel. We gave you everything growing up. In that moment, something shifted inside me. The hurt was still there, but now it was hardening into resolve, like concrete setting. You're right about one thing, Dad. I have changed, and things are about to change even more. I ended the call and immediately opened my banking app. It was time to close the Bank of Olivia permanently. Later that day, the drive home from the airport was a blur of anger and determination. My unsuable Hawaiian Airlines boarding pass lay crumpled in the cup holder of my car, a $735 expense I couldn't get refunded. I spent the evening documenting everything, screenshots of WhatsApp messages, bank transfers, a detailed spreadsheet of every penny I'd given them over the past 2 years. Each entry brought back memories, $7,000 for Dad's retirement party that Mom had insisted needed to be at an exclusive country club, $2,500 for Rebecca's professional camera for her acting portfolio, $4,200 for Mom's dental work, $35,000 for Dad's specialized arthritis treatment, the treatment that had apparently worked miracles, judging by his golf swing in today's photos. The total made me feel physically sick, $47,800. That's what my parents' love had cost me, enough for a substantial down payment on a house in a nice Dallas neighborhood. Money I'd never see again. The next morning, I walked into my bank and closed the joint account I'd opened specifically to transfer money to them. Then I called my company's HR department to remove my parents as beneficiaries from my life insurance policy. With each step, I felt lighter, as if I was finally breaking free from invisible chains that had been weighing me down for years. That's when the messages started flooding in. My phone buzzed constantly with notifications. First came the guilt trips from my mother. "I can't sleep knowing you're upset with us," her text read. "This is tearing our family apart. How could you be so heartless? After everything we've done for you?" Then Rebecca joined in with a series of increasingly angry messages. "OMG, you're being so dramatic. It was just a miscommunication with the dates. Mom's literally crying every day because of you. Way to ruin our vacation. Some of us actually need this break, you know?" But it was my father's message that really showed their true colors. "We raised you better than this. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us. Your mother needs her medication refilled this week, $4.30. Don't you dare abandon your responsibilities to this family. We gave you life." I stared at my phone, amazed by their audacity. My responsibilities to the family? What about their responsibility to treat me with basic respect? What about a parent's responsibility to support their child, not the other way around? Instead of responding individually to their messages, I drafted a clear, firm email. "Dear Mom, Dad, and Rebecca, I've done a lot of thinking since yesterday. The Hawaii incident wasn't a miscommunication, it was a deliberate choice to exclude me while still taking my money. I have proof in the form of messages, social media posts, and bank transfers that I'm prepared to share with extended family if necessary. This pattern of behavior ends now. Effective immediately, I am cutting off all financial support. The money I've provided was a choice, not an obligation. You'll need to find another way to cover your expenses. Dad, your retirement fund should be sufficient if properly managed. Mom, your teacher's pension is still active. Rebecca, at 34, it's time to support yourself fully with your coffee shop job, the one you've been hiding from me while pretending to be in California for auditions. Do not contact me about money again. I need time and space to reevaluate our relationship." Olivia. Within minutes of sending my email, my phone exploded with notifications, calls, texts, and voicemails pouring in like a digital flood. My mother left 3 sobbing voicemails in succession, each more dramatic than the last, wailing about how they'd lose their house without my support. Rebecca's messages oscillated between rage and guilt-tripping. "You selfish bitch. After everything they've done for you," followed by "Mom, can't stop crying. Is this really what you want? To destroy our family?" My father's approach was more calculated. His texts grew increasingly threatening with each hour that passed without a response from me. "You'll regret this decision, Olivia. There will be consequences if you don't come to your senses. We know things about you that your fancy marketing colleagues wouldn't appreciate." I blocked them all: the calls, texts, emails, and social media. The sudden silence was both terrifying and liberating. That evening, as I sat alone in my apartment staring at a meal I couldn't eat, guilt began to creep in like a familiar toxic fog. Years of conditioning had taught me to put their needs first, to believe I was selfish for having boundaries, that family obligation trumped personal well-being. My mother's voice echoed in my head: "Family takes care of family, Olivia. No matter what." I found myself reaching for my phone, fingers hovering over the block settings. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe it really was just a miscommunication about the flight dates. But then I remembered standing in that airport, the crushing realization that they had methodically planned this betrayal. I remembered the Instagram photos, my father golfing despite his debilitating arthritis, my mother shopping at boutiques while claiming they couldn't afford groceries, Rebecca lounging at the pool while I worked 60-hour weeks to fund her acting career. I put my phone down and slept better that night than I had in years. The next day at work, I was reviewing campaign metrics when my assistant knocked on my door. "There's someone here to see you," she said, looking uncertain. "She says she's your aunt? Valerie Brooks?" I was immediately on guard. Did my parents send her? When Valerie walked into my office, I braced myself for more guilt trips, more manipulation, more pressure to resume the financial support. At 55, my father's sister carried herself with the confident posture of someone who managed other people's money for a living. Her tailored suit and practical bob suggested a woman who didn't tolerate nonsense, a stark contrast to my mother's carefully cultivated fragility. "I heard what happened," she said, sitting down across from me. Her voice was neutral, giving nothing away. "Walter and Diane asked me to talk some sense into you." I straightened my spine, preparing for battle. "I've made my decision, Valerie. I'm not changing my mind." What she said next completely blindsided me. "What they did was cruel, Olivia. And it wasn't just the Hawaii trip." She leaned forward, her eyes steady on mine. "I've watched them take advantage of your kindness for years. The way they've manipulated you, extracted money from you while lavishing everything on Rebecca." She shook her head in disgust. "It's time someone in this family told you the truth. You deserve better than this." Tears welled up in my eyes before I could stop them. I'd spent so many years believing I was alone in seeing the patterns, that maybe I was the problem, the ungrateful daughter who didn't understand family obligation. Finally, someone in my family saw me, really saw me. Valerie reached across the desk and squeezed my hand. "I should have said something years ago, but Walter has a way of." She trailed off, and I saw in her face the same conflict I'd battled, family loyalty versus truth. "They'll try everything to pull you back in," she warned. "The guilt, the health scares, the threats. Walter's been doing this his entire life. It's how he controlled our parents too. Stay strong. You're doing the right thing." 2 weeks after sending that email, I discovered something that made the Hawaii incident look like a minor slight. I was eating a salad at my desk when my phone lit up with Valerie's name. "Olivia," she said without preamble, her voice tight with concern. "I need to show you something important. Can you come to my condo after work?" When I arrived at her downtown Dallas high-rise, she had a stack of papers spread across her glass dining table. The evening skyline glittered through floor-to-ceiling windows behind her, but her expression was grim. "Your father came to me last week asking for a loan, a substantial one. He let slip some things that didn't add up with what I know about their finances, so I did some digging." What she showed me made my blood run cold. Bank statements, loan applications, credit card bills, and online gambling receipts painted a disturbing picture. My parents hadn't just been using my money for basic expenses or even Rebecca's supposed career. They'd been living far beyond their means, counting on my support to cover an increasingly extravagant lifestyle. "Look at this," Valerie pointed to a credit card statement with my name on it. "They took out a new card in your name 3 months ago. Have you checked your credit report recently?" My hands shook as I pulled out my phone and downloaded my credit report app. There it was, a $150,000 credit limit card I never knew existed, already carrying a $127,645 balance. Purchases at luxury retailers, cash advances, payments to online gambling sites. They had used my social security number and personal information to open it. "That's identity theft," Valerie said quietly, her accountant's precision making the words even more devastating. "It's a federal crime, Olivia." I felt like I couldn't breathe. The room seemed to tilt sideways. How could they do this? I'm their daughter. "There's more," Valerie continued, sliding another document toward me. "Remember that story about Rebecca's acting career in California? She's not even going to auditions. She's been living at home this whole time, working part-time at a coffee shop downtown. I found her LinkedIn profile that she keeps separate from her family connections. She showed me Rebecca's hidden professional profile on her tablet. My sister, dressed in a Starbucks apron, listed her job as a barista team lead with a start date 3 years ago. The money they claimed was for her headshots, acting classes, and LA apartment? Your father's been using it primarily for online poker and sports betting. Look at these withdrawal patterns. The room seemed to spin as pieces fell into place. The constant requests for more money, the vague explanations about Rebecca's big break just around the corner, the guilt trips when I asked questions about how the money was being spent. It wasn't just emotional manipulation, it was systematic fraud. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Please, sweetie, we need to talk. Your father's having chest pains from all the stress. The doctor says it could be his heart. If anything happens to him, it'll be your fault. Call us immediately." I showed Valerie the message. She shook her head, lips pressed into a thin line. More manipulation. They're desperate because their house of cards is falling apart without your money. Walter pulled the exact same heart problem stunt when our parents finally cut him off after he remortgaged their house without permission. What should I do? I whispered, staring at the evidence of my parents' betrayal spread across the table. You have 2 choices, Valerie said, her voice gentle but firm. You can press charges for the identity theft, which would likely mean criminal proceedings, or you can handle this privately with legal help. But either way, you need to protect yourself. This isn't just about money anymore. They've committed fraud. I thought about years of sacrifice, of putting their needs before mine, of believing their lies about Rebecca's career and my father's health issues. The chest pains, the tears, the guilt trips, it was all part of their game, their way of keeping me tethered to their financial needs. I want to talk to them one last time, I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. Face to face. But I need you there with me. Valerie nodded. I'll set it up. But first, we need to gather all the evidence and freeze your credit immediately. They've shown you who they really are, Olivia. Believe them. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the dreams I'd put on hold to support them. The house I'd planned to buy in that neighborhood with good schools, the international vacations I'd canceled when emergencies arose, the retirement account I should have been building. They hadn't just stolen my money, they'd stolen years of my life. But as I lay there watching shadows move across my ceiling, something else occurred to me. For the first time in my adult life, I felt truly clear-headed. The fog of manipulation and guilt that had clouded my judgment was lifting, and in its place was a steel-like resolve I'd never experienced before. They wanted to play games? Fine. But this time, I would be the one making the rules. The confrontation was set for Saturday afternoon at Valerie's condo. I spent the morning with a lawyer who specialized in identity theft and financial fraud, understanding my options. The attorney was clear. What my parents had done was criminal, not just unethical. I prepared a folder with all the evidence, the fraudulent credit card statements, bank transfers, text messages, screenshots of Rebecca's secret LinkedIn profile versus her fictitious acting career. Everything I needed them to understand that their game was over. As I drove to Valerie's, my phone buzzed with a message from Rebecca. Way to break Dad's heart, you selfish bitch. He's been good to you your whole life. Don't expect me to pick up the pieces when you realize what you've thrown away. I turned off my phone completely. No more distractions. No more manipulation. Today was about truth and consequences. When my parents arrived at Valerie's stylish high-rise condo, Rebecca was with them. She looked nothing like the carefree influencer in those Hawaii photos. Her face was drawn and guilty, her carefully maintained social media image nowhere to be seen. They filed into Valerie's sleek living room like defendants approaching a sentencing. My father's usually commanding presence diminished. Thank you for coming, I began, my voice steady despite the hammering in my chest. I gestured to the leather portfolio folder on the glass coffee table. I've discovered some things we need to discuss. Olivia, my mother interrupted, tears already forming in her expertly made-up eyes. She reached toward me with manicured fingers. Before you say anything, you need to know. No, I cut her off, raising my hand. I'm talking now. I pulled out the credit card statements and spread them across the table like a dealer at a blackjack table. Would anyone like to explain this? The color drained from my father's face as he recognized his signature on the application. Rebecca looked genuinely confused, leaning forward to see the documents. My mother jumped in quickly, her voice taking on that wounded tone she'd perfected over the years. It was an emergency, sweetie. We were going to tell you. Your father's medical bills? An emergency? I laid out more papers methodically, each one a piece of the puzzle. Like the $4,300 in online poker losses last month? Or the maxed-out shopping sprees at Nordstrom? Or maybe Rebecca's fake acting career in California? Rebecca's head snapped up, her eyes widening. What do you mean, fake? I turned to her, seeing for the first time how much my parents had manipulated her too. You really don't know? They've been telling me you're in California pursuing acting. That's where hundreds of thousands of my dollars supposedly went, your headshots, acting classes, apartment rent, living expenses. I slid her fabricated budget across the table, $3,200 monthly for an apartment that didn't exist, $1,500 for acting classes she never took, $800 for headshots with photographers who weren't real. Rebecca looked at our parents in shock, her voice barely above a whisper. I've been working at Starbucks downtown for 3 years. You told me Olivia refused to help with my college tuition when I wanted to go back to school. You said she thought I was a failure. The room erupted in chaos. Rebecca started crying, mascara tracking down her cheeks. My mother launched into a convoluted explanation about protecting both daughters and what's best for the family. My father stood up, his banker's composure crumbling as his face flushed red with anger. Enough, he shouted, pounding his fist on Valerie's expensive coffee table. We did what we had to do. You don't understand what it's like to maintain our lifestyle, our position in the community. Oh, I understand perfectly, I said, my voice ice cold as I pulled out my final piece of evidence, the credit report showing $127,645 in fraudulent charges. You committed identity theft. That's a federal crime with a mandatory prison sentence. I have 2 choices here: press charges and watch you both go to prison, or handle this privately with a legally binding repayment agreement. Your decision. My mother collapsed into theatrical sobs, sliding from the couch to her knees. You wouldn't. We're your parents. After all we've sacrificed for you. Parents don't steal from their children, Valerie interjected, speaking for the first time. Her accountant's precision made each word cut deeper. Parents don't lie and manipulate and commit fraud. Walter, you and Diane have gone too far this time. Just then, my father clutched his chest and staggered backwards, his face contorting. My heart, he gasped dramatically, reaching for the wall to steady himself. Call an ambulance. For a moment, I almost moved to help him. The lifetime of conditioning to respond to his needs nearly overrode my judgment. But then I saw my mother's face, not panic or concern for her husband, but calculation, her eyes darting to gauge my reaction. This was their final play, their attempt to regain control through fear and guilt. No, I said firmly, not moving from my seat. No more manipulation. Dad, we both know there's nothing wrong with your heart, the same heart that was healthy enough for golf in Hawaii last week. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign this repayment agreement for every penny you stole. You're going to close that fraudulent credit card today, and you're going to leave me alone. And if we refuse, my father asked, his heart attack mysteriously forgotten as he straightened up, dropping the act entirely. Then I'll press charges for identity theft, wire fraud, and elder financial abuse for what you did to Grandma before she died, I replied, referencing another financial scandal Valerie had uncovered. "You can explain your actions to a federal judge. I'm sure they'll be very sympathetic to parents who stole over $100,000 from their daughter." The silence that followed was deafening. Rebecca stared wide-eyed between us, witnessing the collapse of the family mythology. Finally, my father nodded, defeated for perhaps the first time in his life. My mother stared at the floor, her tears suddenly dry. And Rebecca? Rebecca looked at me like she was seeing me clearly for the first time. "I had no idea," she whispered. "I swear, Olivia." As they signed the repayment agreement my lawyer had prepared, I felt no satisfaction, only a deep, hollow sadness for the family I thought I had, the loving parents I'd spent my entire life trying to please, the sister bond I'd imagined despite our differences. Epilogue: in the weeks that followed, my parents' carefully constructed facade crumbled completely. Without my financial support, they were forced to sell their house in the upscale neighborhood and move into a small apartment across town. The repayment agreement meant most of their retirement income went to paying back what they'd stolen from me. It wasn't revenge, it was justice. Rebecca moved in with Valerie temporarily while she figured out her next steps. She called me one evening, her voice small and uncertain on the phone. "I had no idea what they were doing," she said. "All these years, they've been playing us against each other. I thought you didn't care about me, that you were too busy with your perfect career to help your failure of a sister. Mom and Dad told me so many things that weren't true. I'm so sorry, Olivia." Her apology meant something, but it couldn't erase years of damage and resentment. Still, it was a start. We agreed to meet for coffee the following week. My parents made one final attempt to manipulate me. They showed up at my office unannounced, causing a scene in the lobby. My mother clutched at the receptionist's desk, tears streaming down her face. "We'll lose everything," she wailed loudly enough for the entire floor to hear. "Our own daughter is punishing us. After all we've sacrificed for you." I stood my ground, painfully aware of my concerned colleagues watching from the hallway. "You lost me," I said calmly, maintaining eye contact with both of them. "That's the only thing that matters. And it was your choice." Security escorted them out, my father threatening legal action the entire way. But we both knew all the legal leverage was on my side now. As I watched them leave, I felt nothing but peace. The guilt that had weighed me down for years was gone, replaced by a lightness I'd never known was possible. I was no longer their ATM, their emotional punching bag, or their victim. That evening, I booked a trip to Hawaii, just for me. As I confirmed the reservation at the same resort they'd enjoyed without me, I smiled at the irony. They had tried to exclude me from a family vacation, but in doing so, they had given me something priceless: freedom. 3 months later, I stood on a beach in Maui, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. The warm sand between my toes and the gentle crash of waves created a peaceful backdrop for my thoughts. This wasn't the family vacation I'd originally imagined, but it was exactly what I needed. My phone, blissfully quiet without the constant barrage of guilt-tripping messages, buzzed with a text from Valerie. "They're finally moving out of the house this weekend," she wrote. "Rebecca's enrolled in community college to finish her business degree. She's asking about having coffee with you when you're back." I took a deep breath of salt air and replied, "Tell her I'm open to it." The repayment plan was working. Slowly but surely, my parents had sold most of their possessions: the luxury cars, my mother's designer clothes, my father's collection of rare whiskeys, and every month a check arrived from them without fail. Not because they were sorry, but because they had no choice. The fraud charges I'd held back would surface if they missed a single payment. My mother still tried sending emotional emails through different accounts. "We're eating ramen noodles while you're living in luxury. Is this what you wanted for your own parents?" I deleted them without responding. Their guilt trips had lost their power over me. At work, I'd earned another promotion to senior marketing director. The energy I used to spend managing my parents' chaos now went into building my own life and career. I'd even started looking at houses in a neighborhood I loved, a dream I'd put on hold for years while funding their lifestyle. Standing there on the beach, watching the Hawaiian sunset I'd paid for myself, I finally understood. Sometimes the happiest endings don't involve forgiveness or reconciliation. Sometimes they're about walking away and choosing yourself, about setting boundaries even when it hurts. My parents had planned this Hawaii trip to hurt me, to exclude me while taking my money. But instead, they'd set me free.